All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us for another episode of Simply the Best Coaching Podcast. And today we have a special guest, Coach T here of Tap In Coaching. I'm going to let her share a little bit about who she is and what she does.
Well, thank you, Mignon. I'm just happy to be on your podcast. Kudos to everything that you have been doing so far. But so yes, Tamika Renfro. I am a 49-year-old wife and mother. I graduated from Tuskegee University with the bachelor's in psychology and from Auburn University with a master's in community agency counseling. Kind of got derailed there, or well, I'll take that back. I'll say I derailed myself, um, and ended up, out of grad school trying to find a particular counseling job. Kind of got frustrated with the process and looking, and ended up going to the plant. So I was in the plant, ExxonMobil for like about 5 or 6 years, and then chronic pain took over. Life
Mm.
significantly changed. And so it's been a journey since then, but still here and still moving and still pushing.
Yes, you are, and you are inspiration to more people than what you know. I want to thank you for coming on today because what got my attention was yes, we've been working together and I've known you for a long time. However, but when you put your article out and the way that you said it, because I know the way that you talk, the
Right.
way that you said, like, you know, chronic pain doesn't care about your grief, that
Hmm.
like spoke directly to me. And I was like, there are people out there that are suffering right now that need to hear this is not
Definitely.
a topic or area that I hear a lot of people talking about, but I know they are struggling with it. And because I know a lot of people that have chronic pain, like it's just
Right.
for lay people, just the pain that's going to be there is not going away anytime soon.
Exactly.
And we basically have to just learn to deal with it. But when we talk about grief, especially around this time of the year that we're recording this, it that is one of the number one things that get people down around this time of year. We start thinking
Right.
about memories and the obligations that we have for like the holidays.
Yeah.
Personally, it is a very intense and anxious time, and I cope with it the best that I can. And I'll let you share with us some of the things that we can do then. But well, first of all, what do you mean by chronic pain doesn't care about your grief?
Well, in my journey to healing, um, that was basically the deciding factor in, me actually um going full time into my healing journey.
Hmm.
Because it's so many things, life just keeps rolling on. And it's like that with chronic pain and with grief. I said before, when I was working at ExxonMobil, I was working in a plant when I first got diagnosed with fibromyalgia.
Mm.
And so, hey, I'm talking to supervisors, I'm telling everybody, like, hey, this is going on. And because at that point, just recently being diagnosed, my body went haywire. Like
Yeah.
it just completely went haywire. So there was so many different things going on with my body that I just could not explain and was even uncomfortable with explaining. But I still had a job to do. So
Hmm.
the job didn't stop. The job didn't care that, my body has completely turned on me, that my life changed overnight. And so I learned to see, a lot of things that just keep on going, whether I'm, dealing with chronic pain or not. And so with grief, that was significantly one of those. Having to go through loss in the midst of still going to see doctors and having procedures to try to find out what was going on with me. Um, I just kind of went into this closed off space, I'll say. And so it's been a journey since then. Um, and so when I started to try to understand where I was and how I got there, that was one of the things that resonated or was just kind of jumping out at me. Like, yeah, you can sit and talk about all of these different things that you have going on, all of these bad things, all of these very valid things, feelings, or whatever. But at the end of the day, life still has to go on. And
Yeah.
so chronic pain, when you have chronic pain, it doesn't say, hey, wait a minute, she just lost a loved one, so let's give her a break today. Um, Actually, none of that happened. It was like there was never a break. So when I'm already 100% fully focused on trying to manage my chronic pain, then up stepped grief.
Yeah.
And so grief didn't stop my chronic pain. And if anything, it exacerbated it. It made it worse.
That's what I
It's
was wondering.
it
Yes.
it definitely made it worse. And I tell people that um like fibromyalgia pain took a back seat or can take a back seat sometimes, but only to more pain. It doesn't take a back seat to, the happy times in life or, what I'm saying, events that you have scheduled or whatever. But the only thing my fibromyalgia took a back seat to was new chronic pain diagnosis
Mm.
that I got over the years. And so it just realizing that, hey, this is your life. This is where you are. And either you're going to continue to live like, woe is me, or you're going to try to figure this thing out and figure out how to live with it and how to um, enjoy life with it. You understanding that you'll never get rid of it. So it's one of the two things. And I would say that I did both. I wallowed in it for the longest, like why me? And I
Mhm.
also, hey, just picked up and said, kind of gotta keep moving, I gotta keep going. So it was a long journey from one to the other.
Yes. Yes. That I commend you. And that's what that title was screaming to me when it said it. I thought about one time when I had a really, really, really bad UTI, and
Mhm,
I went to the doctor. I think I'd already had like one round of antibiotics or something like that.
mhm,
And so my back was just hurting like so bad. And it wasn't the typical areas that you experience pain with a UTI. And so I was just like asking her, I was like, well, why my back hurts me so bad, And she was like, well, we're gonna get a urine. And I'm like, what is that gonna do? you know?
right, right,
So
exactly.
I was like, why does it hurt? But then, we talked more about it, and she pointed out to me that because I already had a history of back injuries and things,
Mhm,
that basically those type of infections exacerbate that. They pick
mhm.
the weakest link and then they exploit it. And I was
Yes,
okay, and
absolutely,
that has
absolutely.
stuck with me. And that's what I
Yes.
thought when you said that. And I was
Mhm.
wow. Um,
And you are spot on
okay.
because and I'll just to kind of catch everybody up, I'll make a really long story short of,
Mhm.
just my chronic pain. So, in 2012, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And the funny thing, I, the, I guess, interesting thing about that is that the doctor actually told me that it was probably because my dad had passed. My dad passed at the end of 2011, and I was diagnosed at the end of 2012.
Hmm.
But this entire time, I'm thinking because I was working in a male-dominated industry, and I was putting a lot of strain on my body, just to being a female, just to carry my own weight and to not have people, working with me or taking advantage of, hey, I'm a female, help me out with this. And so I would come home and like my mom would have to try to, my back would be like so inflamed and she would try to do everything like compresses. I mean, I'm taking medication, all this stuff. So I literally thought it's because of the strain that I put on my body, and I never thought about it when she said, well, you just lost your dad. I guarantee you that this is because of that. And so I had to start thinking about that correlation, like, and just in dealing with fibromyalgia, learning about autoimmune conditions, stress is a key factor in triggering or even, onsetting.
Yeah.
So, everyone's like, "Hey, don't do too much, don't overdo it, don't try to," and I was having trouble explaining, like, I don't know what is overdone until it's done. I was kinda in that place where, okay, I'm trying to take it easy. I didn't even do anything. I'm in a complete flare up. So 2017, I'm already dealing with fibromyalgia. 2017, pelvic prolapse. So I had a hysterectomy, which I also had to get a bladder sling.
Mm.
And in the midst of surgery, they figured out I also needed an appendectomy. That was three major procedures
Major
at
fatigue.
one time, and I already have fibromyalgia. About a month and a half into recovery from the hysterectomy, I was back to, well, I think I was back to work, felt this sharp pain in my stomach, and that's when the journey began. I went back to the doctor that did the hysterectomy. That's when I started all the tests, like what is going on. Um, Again, I'm just figuring out how to deal with the fibromyalgia, and now this is a new pain, and I don't know what it is.
Right.
Um, so basically, after the hysterectomy, I got pelvic vein compressions. So you have these, pelvic veins that kind of intersect with, arteries or whatever. And so it was possibly my natural anatomy, but having the hysterectomy and removing the uterus, everything kind of, when they explained it to me, kind of snapped back like, what's going on?
Yeah.
We don't like this, we're uncomfortable. And so then there was years just trying to get diagnoses because a lot of doctors, OBGYN, most of them are not even familiar with pelvic vein compression. And that was the first thing that I found out. So I go to a doctor and I'm thinking I found the specialist and then he'll treat one and then send me home and then some more symptoms develop and I have to go to another specialist and then he'll diagnose me with another one and then he'll treat that. And so it just seemed like everything was just piling on. Like every year was a new diagnosis. Every year was another one or two procedures. And mind you, I'm still working. Mind you that I'm trying to take care of my sick mom,
Mm-hmm.
all of these different things, but the chronic pain was still there. There
Yeah.
was nothing that I could do even to try to take a break and just, hey, I need to sit in this space for a moment. It doesn't care. And it really doesn't care about you. Chronic pain is that, that nagging friend that, you know, it's that love-hate relationship. I don't like it at all. I accept that, we have to live through some pains or whatever, but it completely takes over your life.
Yeah.
It takes over your mind, takes over your body, and it takes over your spirit. So all of those diagnoses were received between 2017 and 2023. Every year, new diagnosis and a new procedure. And during the entire time, the doctors were saying, we don't see anything. We don't see this. We don't see that. Like, we don't see a reason for this to be happening. I got a lot of diagnoses of exclusion. That's a thing. Just because since we can't find it, this is the closest thing to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the closest thing to it. And so I kind of, I felt violated going to all of these doctors, thinking I finally found the right specialist, going into a procedure, thinking I'm going to wake up and have, I'm saying, the answers that I need, and just wake up to, hey, didn't find anything, didn't find anything. Like that happened so many more times than some things were ever found.
Yeah.
I remember even having a pain stimulator put in just to find out that that had nothing to do with, that it actually could not, it malfunctioned And so I had to get that taken out. I went from here to Louisiana, to Houston, to Dallas, just trying to get, answers. Not even so
Yeah.
much treatment, but just answers. Like somebody just tell me why am I going through what I'm going through.
Mm-hmm.
And so during that process, I lost my mom, I lost my aunt first, and I lost my mom back to back.
Yeah.
My mom, her health was declining, and I took her into my home. And so I'm trying to get answers to everything that's going on with me while taking her to all of her appointments. And I was not healthy enough to be a caregiver. I was not healthy enough to manage work-life balance.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I felt a duty and responsibility to do all of it, no matter how much pain I was in, do my job, care for my mom, to make sure my kid had everything she needed, to make sure my husband, was okay, to make sure that everything around me was okay, even though I was completely falling apart.
Right. Right. Yes. That is, man. It sounds when you sit and you listen to it, and especially when you don't, if you don't know people, it sounds like a lifetime story. But
Right.
this is your real life and what you on
Real life, story.
every
Um,
day.
and I
It's
mean, I'm thankful to like have, humor around it and about it, you know,
mm-hmm.
now, but the combination of chronic pain and grief took me to the lowest place I've ever been in my life. Um, and I'll say just on autopilot,
Mm-hmm.
just numb like to everything because, you know, up until these diagnoses, I wasn't a complainer. I wasn't, you know what I'm saying? I mean, like my family will tell you like I'm a baby, but I am, the baby of my family. But so I do, when I'm going through something, yes, I want to be baby, I want the attention, but I was never like a complainer. And then I go to heaven every time somebody asks me how I'm doing. Hey, how are you? That is this bothering me. That's bothering me. This is about And I was never that person.
Yeah.
So of course that made me feel weak. It made me feel like all of a sudden I'm this weak person. And then I had this thing that I had absolutely no control over, my own body. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it that definitely took a mental toll.
Yes.
Diagnosed with anxiety and depression. Um, and I was burned out on my job because I really couldn't do the job anymore. And the other side of that is, I worked for adult protective services for years, and I'm going trying to solve everyone's problems, and mine are just on top of my head, just weighing me
Yeah.
down. That was another thing. Like, how am I out here? You know what I'm saying? And I'm counseling. I'm talking to people that are
Yes.
in my exact same situation. I'm giving them the best advice, Then I come home and I'm just completely depleted and defeated.
Yes. So that leads me to point out that I love like when I come into contact with people that I don't love the fact that we have endured these things,
Mhm.
but the fact that we've been through it, it gives us an unfair advantage to help the next person. And I honestly
Exactly.
believe that we're not allowed to go through those things to just hold on to that information for ourselves. And it was kind of funny to me when you mentioned you was out there in the trenches. For those of you that don't know how we work with APS and stuff, it's not
Right, yes.
a glamorous job, but you out there in the trenches and you're actively helping people that a lot of times don't want our help.
Right.
And but you're doing it, and your
Mhm.
whole life is a mess.
Is
And
a
I can
whole
remember my time at the VA, I was like, they didn't know, but I'm like, I'm your number one advocate when it comes to, you coming up there for anything to deal with mental health. And sometimes I would
right.
go over into the primary care side without overstepping and seeing how can I help with this,
Mhm.
especially with all the blowback that the VA gets. I wanted to make a difference
Right.
and really help my clients. And I found myself doing that one day. And it was one of those days when I made it back to the work after losing my dad. And I would sit on a stool, and then they would see the doctor virtually. So I would get them together and then share what they share with me, and then turn the video on for the doctor and
Mhm.
walk out. So one time in particular, she got on the screen and he was like, "Well, I really don't even need to talk to you. We already done figured it out."
Mm.
I
Right.
started laughing, and I just started laughing to myself because
Right.
a couple of them, the reason why I could tell you this is because I was going through it myself, you know.
Exactly.
And
Yes.
unfortunately, I knew exactly what they were saying. And
Mhm.
so it also helped me to know when somebody was just bluffing and
Right.
when somebody really was in pain and seeking
Yes.
help.
Yes.
Plus, the ones that are in pain and their pride won't let them ask for help.
Mhm.
So I was like, that it was just so funny to me. I always go back to that day because I was sitting there on that stool, like you just don't know,
Right.
you
Right.
know.
You just don't know. Like, oh yeah, been there, done that. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, just and like you said, coming back to work, after losing your dad, and it's hard to explain away that
Hmm.
mask that you have to put on to, get up and go back to work when you're living an entirely different life now, you know,
Hmm.
because when you lose a parent, it changes you. And I
Yes.
mean, it definitely changes you. But, you're expected to go back into this job and continue, saving everybody that you can save. And then nobody is there to save you.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
even discussing like putting on the mask, most of these are, well, all of my conditions are what are known as invisible illnesses. So you don't see my illness. You don't see the symptoms of it. All I can do is tell you. And I
Hmm.
see the looks, I see the stares like this thing must be crazy, you know? And that's from professionals to everyday
Yes.
lay people. Like you cannot be going through that much. And I'm like, no, really, over here, dying. Like, I'm completely it took over my life. I mean, I allowed it to completely take over my life. I did every single thing based on how much pain it may cause me,
Right.
you know. What is this? How am I gonna feel after I do this? After I go to that? Um, and at the same time, I was still doing all of it. I was
Hmm.
still doing all of it. So it was just an endless cycle. I was in an endless cycle of, burnout, grief, chronic pain, and just juggling them up. Waking up
Yeah.
each day like which one of y'all gonna stand big today? Basically, just
Hmm.
knowing, you know, as if I had absolutely no control over it because that's the way I felt. I
Right.
felt like I had lost complete control of not only my body, but my life, my mind, um, my emotions, my whatever, anything else that you could think of. I felt
Hmm.
like I was only existing, or I knew I was only existing.
Yes.
That
And
was a
that
tough
forces
place to
us
be.
to make some hard, harsh truths,
Hmm.
to acknowledge the fact that I'm just merely existing.
Hmm.
And I feel
That's a hard pill to swallow.
yes. And
Very hard pill.
especially as like you said, you especially when you say you look back and you be like, I did everything like I was supposed to. I did everything right. I have all these degrees.
Right. Right.
I
Right.
go to school, I go to work, I work hard. Okay, I couldn't do that. I try something else.
Yeah,
I don't know.
like,
It's just it's
what
a
is it?
hard, yeah, it's a
Mhm.
hard place, and I feel like a lot of people I encounter, they're not ready or willing to go there yet.
To go there yet, and that's the thing, and I think that's a natural impulse. That's a natural protective, you know, mechanism of
Mm-hmm.
just not, you know, really dealing with those things. Um, but for me, once I really did sit in all of it, that was the turning point.
Yeah,
Once I stopped suppressing all of it, suppressing the way I felt about it, once I started just acknowledging that the way I feel is valid, um, just acknowledging that, you know, these were life changing circumstances, grieving the loss of my former self,
that
um,
part.
grieving the loss of who I was and the things that I was able to do. And so, you know, people would say, well, you still do this and you go and you drive because invisible illnesses cause you to feel invisible.
Mm,
Um, because you feel like nobody can see or understand your pain. And so for me, on like I had support groups on Facebook for every single rare condition that I had. And just being able to talk with people, listen to people that were going through exactly what I was going through, you know, or worse, or not so bad, just the variety of it. Because family, I mean, they're all supportive. They're, you
mm,
know, but you get that, hey, you know, you don't need to overdo it. You're doing too much. And they're not understanding that I don't know what too much is, you know. Um,
right.
my body, like the least of things can be too much. Um, just understanding that what before I could brush off, now I can't. You know,
Mm,
stub my toe, do something, you know, smash my finger or, you know, hit my elbow on something. You know, stuff like that that I used to could like just brush off. Now it's like, whoa, what just hit me?
wow.
You know?
Right.
And so it was really good to be, and I still, you know, participate in those support groups to this day because it's a lifelong thing. Um,
Yes.
but just having someone else that understands and knows what you're talking about. Because I would go into so many doctors' offices and they're like, what? I'm like, so I can Google this. How have you never even heard of it? You know? So it definitely did a mind game on me. Um, I completely lost myself in chronic pain, grief, and burnout.
Those
Um,
are three major things. Just looking at those, just those three. Those are three major things. Usually people are battling one of those, but it's like
right.
that's three different life altering situations.
Hmm.
Yes.
And so my mom was the one that was there, like every appointment, every procedure, like every test, you know. So right in the midst of all that, that's taken away,
Yeah.
you know. So the support is just not the same. I can say, I mean, I have a great support system, but still manage to feel alone most of the time
Mm-hmm.
in dealing with my chronic pain, in grieving my former self, in grieving the loss of loved ones, in acknowledging the fact that I lost myself,
Mm-hmm.
that I had allowed life circumstances to just completely um, get me off track. The anxieties, the insecurities, just feeling overwhelmed with life. Now, I always say like I never wanted to kill myself, but I was very like, okay, Lord, I ain't gonna be too mad though,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's
Like
just
a lot of
honest.
people, yeah, a lot of
That's
people can't identify with that feeling, but I'm like,
yeah,
until you've been there.
until you've been there,
And then
you
like
know,
the old people say, see, keep saying good morning.
keep saying good morning. That's what I just keep saying good morning, you
Yeah,
know, and that's the place I was in where, hey, if you plan to take me out right about now, I'm really not tripping, you know.
yeah,
And so I that's where I was.
right, right.
And so that it was a hard fought battle to turn that around.
Yes. So
Mm.
how did you what did when you found yourself in those dark spaces like that, how did you fight your way out?
I had to call on my faith. I
Yeah,
had to utilize my faith. Um, but not just my faith in God, but my faith in his power within me.
yes.
Because that's two totally different things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of times we're looking for something outside of ourselves to heal us and make us whole. And like you just said a minute ago, not wanting to have those tough conversations with yourself, not wanting to, get down and dirty with, hey, where did I turn? When did I get like this? How did I allow this to happen? Answering those tough questions to really understand how you got to where you are, and then figuring out that you don't want to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you have to ask those tough questions of
Yeah.
yourself. And so that's where the whole, tap in coaching came from,
Yeah.
because I literally had to tap into the power of God within me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and not something outside of myself.
Yeah.
Um, that he is all powerful, but then that power is also in me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because with chronic pain, I had no power. At least that's what I thought in my mind. With chronic pain, I had no strength.
Mm-hmm.
At least I thought in my mind. In dealing with years of it, that's the place I came to. Like, I completely had no control over picking up and moving on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it took a lot of praying. It took a lot of deep questions, conversations with myself and God.
Mm-hmm.
And even when I like talk to people now or minister to people or tell them, my story is my testimony. Um, Once I did that hard work and started answering those hard questions, I was able to sit in that and acknowledge all the feelings that I had suppressed about it for years. And
Yes.
when they used to tell you pressure bust a pipe, that's a country thing, but
Mm-hmm.
it does. All of those things I had been holding in, you know, and I won't say like I didn't cry during those years. I'm not gonna say I wasn't, like down or whatever, but I wasn't dealing with it.
Yes.
I wasn't dealing with it. I was just carrying it with me as
Yes.
another bag.
Mm-hmm.
Grief, losing my mom and my aunt, that was just like a mom to me back to back. That was another bag. um, being on my job with chronic medical issues and finally realizing that I had to walk away from that was another bag.
Mm-hmm.
And unpacking those bags, doing that work is what build me back up.
Yes. Yeah.
Praying, but doing the work that I needed to do and not expecting my higher power to do it for me.
Right. The word says faith without works is dead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So all I want to do is help somebody
Mm-hmm.
at this point. All I want to do is help somebody. Like my story is my testimony.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and help, I can't tap into you just like you can't tap into me. There's some work that has to be done solo dolo. Just you and your inner self and your higher consciousness
Mm-hmm.
that absolutely nobody can help you with. And the thing is, right now, so many people are running from that hard part. So many
Absolutely.
people are running from the lessons that comes with such adversity and trauma. You know, I had to take a step back and realize, okay, you have all of these different things going on. And so many other medical issues could have arise because of what you're going through. I think I may have left off my last diagnosis of loin pain hematuria syndrome. That's a gross hematuria syndrome that includes chronic flank pain.
Mm.
And that's the one I really thought was going to take me out because I work with youth programs, work with the track program. I'm trying to be outside. I'm dehydrated. And it doesn't matter. I'm filling up on fluids. I lost when I first in TMI, but when I first started bleeding, having gross hematuria, I was 140 pounds, and
Mm.
I dropped to 120 in what felt like overnight.
Wow.
I was 115 in high school. I've always been small. But during the course of this process, I got down to 100 pounds. That played on my psyche.
Mm-hmm.
That played, I'm still trying to show up in public places and feeling like, oh, I know they think I'm sick. I know they think I'm dying. Now I go from all these invisible things to now it's visible.
Yeah.
And so when before you just wanted someone to just see your pain, now it hurts for people to see your pain, the pain that they
Mhm.
can't now see. So it it was a journey.
Yes.
It was a journey because I needed to address each of them individually and collectively
Mm-hmm.
because they're all intermingled and intertwined.
Yes.
Chronic pain and grief exhibit some of the same symptoms. A lot of the same things with chronic pain, muscle fatigue, general fatigue, like muscle tension, sleep disturbances, digestive disorders. Same thing that you see a lot of people deal with grief.
Mm-hmm.
The tension from the stress of it, not being
Right.
able to sleep, disturbed sleep patterns, digestive issues, not, depression got you not, what I'm saying, really being able to eat or having an appetite, all these different things. It was all coexisting.
Yeah.
I felt like they just came in, set up camp. It was like, we like it here. You know, we
Yeah.
like it here.
The perfect vessel.
The perfect vessel.
Hmm.
But, you know, some of the risks of having consistent gross hematuria like blood clots and kidney loss of kidney function. And so that combined with me going into doctors and them not being able to find a cause is what let me know that it was spiritual.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is what let me know that this was a season just for me and that he had kept me
Yes.
and was keeping me.
Yes.
As bad as I'm thinking life is, it could be so much worse.
Yes.
So I started to think about my pain in a different light, my emotional pain and my physical pain, my spiritual pain.
Hmm.
What is it that I am supposed to get out of this?
Yeah.
What is it that God wants me to go through these things for? What is that purpose? And it's to help somebody else,
Hmm.
to help somebody else that feels like they don't know who they are anymore and they don't even know how to tap in to get to know themselves.
Yes. And that's
So,
something that people don't talk about. You
mhm,
don't know what you don't know. And
right,
a lot of times we walk around and we pretend that we're all knowing, and that,
right,
and then the one that gets me is that we pretend like, oh, you don't know that, or you don't know. No, you
right.
don't know.
You don't know.
You don't
You
know.
don't know.
But the great thing is that now that you shared, I know there are some people out there, you know exactly who you are,
Hmm.
and you're in that space and you're looking for, you don't even know what you're looking for. But
Right. Yes.
just tap in.
Just
You'll
tap
be
in.
able to go to her website and request an appointment, and y'all can talk about it amongst yourself, because a lot of the things are going to be similar, but some of the
Right.
things are going to be different. But like she said, it's going to be a lot of hard work that you're going to
Hard work.
do. And
Hmm.
remember, we're talking about at least three different areas: burnout, chronic pain, and
And grief. Hmm.
so I know that's just about everybody.
Right.
That's just
Right.
about everybody that we have touched on right there. And
Hmm.
especially during the holiday times, how how do you cope during the holiday times? With, I guess we'll start with like the grief, with
Hmm.
not having your aunt and your mom there. How do you cope with that?
Um, by honoring them,
Mm-hmm.
I've I've never like been a cemetery person, but my daughter is. Um, Knowing ahead of time, I know that the holidays come every year.
Mm-hmm.
Just like I know tax time comes every year. I prepare for tax time, so I have to prepare for the holidays. And it's not to say, oh, I know I'm going to feel bad. No, it's the realization that it could have an impact on me mentally, physically, and emotionally,
Yes.
and taking the necessary precautions to try to avoid that as much as possible. And which is difficult because, like you said, the holidays are the time when you're supposed to think more about your loved ones. You're supposed to draw closer to those people that you love, after a hard year or, what I'm saying, just whatever. Like, that's just the time that we can get back together and regroup. But
Mm-hmm.
who's to say that I have to feel festive? Who's to say that you have to feel festive? You
Right.
know, um, asking those hard questions is how you discover what you need and how to be able to tell others what you need.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have the solution at all times. You just need to rest. You don't need to do too much. You just know, you need to do this. You just come over here. We're gonna have a good time. And if we just go do
Yes,
this, and I'm just like, no,
that's not how it works. And I'm like, I give 'em a lot of them a pass, and I'm like, I know it's coming from love, but
right.
like a couple of things I'll maybe like RSVP for because that's my goal to actually go. But
Hmm.
if I don't show up, no,
Right,
it's not because I intentionally RSVP told you I was coming and that I just decided not to go.
right.
No, it's because something happened, and that's one of the burdens that I have to bear is that a lot of times there are a lot of people disappointed with me, and I have a boundary set around that with myself where
Hmm.
I weigh out the options. It's like,
Right.
okay, I know this is the way my anxiety works, and especially around this time of year, I know this gonna cost me a lot.
Hmm.
So I'm reserving that for when we get together as family, when I'm having people in my space, when I'm going to other people's space. I know that's going to cost me a lot. That's worth it.
Right. Right.
But all the other little celebration and parties and stuff, that's not worth that much to me
Right.
because
Yeah.
what they don't see is me at home when all I can do is sleep. That what they don't
Exactly.
see is me at home who is, I feel like a nerve that's been peeled back when every time
Hmm.
somebody speaks, it just irritates me to
It
the core.
irritates that nerve.
They don't see that. And
Right.
I don't want that, for my family. They don't deserve that. And I don't deserve to feel like that either.
Right.
But I've
Hmm.
had to work to get there. And I know a lot of people will be like, well, she never come to the stuff that I invite her to. And I'm
Right.
like, well, I've told you once or twice that after those two times, I stopped telling you because,
Hmm.
like I share our boundaries, we are responsible for letting people know what they are,
Hmm.
and we just have to be okay, learn to be okay with how they feel about it.
Right.
And there's gonna be
Exactly.
people that's gonna be upset, and it's like, if you love me, you'll
You
understand.
understand. Exactly. And speaking on boundaries, that was another turning point for me. Um, I mean, I found out in therapy that I absolutely had no boundaries. Like I was so disappointed in myself, honestly, you know,
It's
because
good.
I didn't realize. I just thought if I can help, I should help,
Hmm.
not realizing that I can have 10 things on my plate, but if somebody say they need me, I'm gonna add 11 until the
Right.
point to where I have nothing left to give. I got to a point to where I feel like I had given so much of myself. And that's not to say like people like take or anything like that. Just my plate was full. They asked, they didn't know my plate was full. I knew my
Right.
plate was full,
Right.
you know, and I put that unnecessary burden on myself. And so once I tapped into just really looking at how much of these things I placed on myself and not, because there are pressures from outside. There's pressure from family and friends and, coworkers or whatever. But the pressure that I put on myself to be available to everybody, to be a willing vessel,
Hmm.
left me empty. And so I pride myself now in saying, oh, too much on my plate, not in
Yeah.
the right headspace, not, feeling that because, you know, if I don't want to, I don't.
Hmm.
When before with no boundaries, I'm really not feeling like going to this Christmas party, but you've already crossed your boundaries. The
Yeah.
but you've
Yeah.
already crossed your boundaries. You
Yep.
know, of course, we have to push past, things to, be in spaces where we want to be, you know, but just really asking those but why questions. Te- Asking yourself, is this realistic or not? Like, are they really gonna hate me if I don't show up? You know, the
Hmm.
unnecessary pressures that I put on myself because remember, I'm unhealthy. I'm dealing with chronic pain. My mind is all over the place. My heart is all over the place. My spirit is all over the place, you know?
Mhm.
So I'm unhealthy to even be in these rooms anyway.
Yeah.
And so just adding more pressure to how can I box myself up to make it through this event? Those
Mhm.
boundaries already crossed.
Yes.
And so a big thing for me is not crossing my own boundaries. You know, we
Yeah, that's
always think that we
hard.
set boundaries for others, but I had to realize that in most situations, I was crossing my own boundaries.
Mhm.
I was putting, more stress on myself than I should have. That's
Right.
not to take away from outside factors and things that happen, but I was the major culprit.
Yes, it's the a little saying I have when I'm speaking with clients. I'll be like, I have them to go look for. I said, go look for areas and spaces and situations where you're sweeping around somebody's front door that didn't ask you to,
Right.
and
Yes.
you're paying the cost for that. But did they ask you to do that? But no, but it was just I know that they need it. But did they ask you
But did
that?
they ask you for that? Right. Right. And just the mindfulness of that. The
Hmm.
mindfulness, because if you don't get to know you, and we have to stop with, what I'm saying, getting back to myself. Because once you go through traumas and, stressors, issues, or whatever, you're never going to be that person
No,
again. And
and
so that
nobody.
was one of the things I mentioned in one of my articles is that, hey, you don't know this new person. You literally have to get to know who you are as a result of everything you've been through,
Hmm.
have become. That's the good and the bad.
Yeah,
You can't work on it unless you know what it is.
right. And
And
I'm like,
so, go
that
ahead.
part of life, nobody prepares us for. And I'm like, maybe it's because they don't really even know it exists. But we transition and evolve into different people.
Into different people, all throughout life, with or
Yeah.
without, traumatic experiences and grief and loss.
Hmm.
And so you can't expect others to know you if you don't know yourself.
Right. Right.
And so prioritizing myself, prioritizing my self-care, prioritizing my self-love is what makes it possible for me to be in those spaces.
Yes.
Um, because now I can go into a space, not to say that, stresses or issues can't come out of, situations just because I prepared and I'm in a, I've been meditating and I'm in a space so I can go be around these people today. It doesn't mean that, situations aren't going to happen,
Yeah.
but
Mm.
being mindful and knowing, okay, if I'm going to go on this trip, I know I may flare up, from chronic pain. What am I going to do? What is my plan? You know, like now, most of my family and friends know we go do this. Do not disturb tomorrow. Like do not disturb because I'm being mindful about what I'm saying, allowing my mind and my body to recover.
Absolutely.
To recover from things. And sometimes whether it's needed or not. Not just because okay, I'm so tired, but if I know I've been overstimulated,
Hmm.
then I have to calm that down and bring that back.
Yes. And it's like these days, I feel like that people are, when we learn a new term, that we use it as what we call buzzwords,
Yes.
and we name everything that, but it's like we walk around with overwhelm and overstimulation like it's a badge of honor. No,
Right. No,
you overstimulated for a reason.
for a
You need
reason.
to
Right.
address that.
Mhm.
you
And
know.
then I'll even say Black women,
Mm,
we almost cornered the market on that mask
yes.
and that baggage.
Mm-hmm.
So most of us get to mid-age and realize just how much baggage we have and just how much of a mask we've been wearing.
Yes.
I saw something online the other day where this lady was saying, stop saying strong black woman. Stop saying strong black woman because it automatically tells people that you can handle it, whatever
Yeah.
it is, you know? And so while I am definitely proud of the strength that I have, I do know that wearing it well only brings more baggage.
Yes.
It only brings wearing it well only causes people to feel like you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
You can handle it. You can take it.
Yep. And that's funny that you bring it out because that was the first speaking opportunity that I had as a coach. That was the topic of my discussion. I talked about the strong black woman and how we were like the number one killer of ourselves because we put all of this on. We accept it, and like you said, we wear it as a badge of honor.
There's a badge of honor.
And I'm like, with the recent elections, that heavily depended on black women, I'm hoping that my sisters, they say they are, but I'm hoping that they just go and rest and let
Mm-hmm.
folks figure it out on their own.
Right.
One of the things
Right.
that one of my pastors always would say to us to help us with some of the things, they were like, but I can do that and I can do this. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
You should. Mm-hmm.
And I often will say that out loud when I'm talking to me to make me pay attention and be like, hey, just because you can doesn't mean you should. So, see, is this one of these situations?
Mm-hmm.
That's why you're having this little feeling about it?
Right.
Oh, and 9 times out of 10, it is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Mm-hmm.
funny. I feel like that, well, I know that that heavily comes from our upbringing as well.
Right.
With putting on the bags. We're not
Mm-hmm.
given the space as young black girls growing up to actually deal with what's going
To
on.
deal exactly.
And it's not because, we're saying our parents don't care about us because they didn't know. That was
Mm-hmm.
the best that they had at that point in time.
Exactly. Right.
But we know better now.
Mm-hmm.
We
Mm-hmm.
know better.
And that's it. That's even another part of, like just unpacking that. Like at some point, it's not their fault anymore. You can
Mm,
attribute to, like you said, whatever, they did the best that they could. Then after that, it's you.
yeah.
Yeah. It's all you. It becomes all about you taking control of your happiness, yourself, your purpose, your likes, your wants. It comes down to you prioritizing yourself
Right.
because we prioritize it. We prioritize the kids. We prioritize the husband. We prioritize the job. And then self-care for us, you know, and you have nothing to give to yourself at that point
Mm-hmm.
because everyone else has it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just like you said, asking yourself those hard questions. What is it really going to hurt? Or how is it really gonna affect me or impact me if I don't do this? If I don't attend this function?
Mm-hmm.
If I don't participate in this activity? If I don't do because the age of social media, there's so much pressure to I don't really want to say conform, but maybe to keep up.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pressure to just try to keep up with, the trends and the changing of the times. And, That's a very important thing, but
Mhm.
is that what you like?
Right.
Is that what you really like? Is that what you really like to do? Is that where you really like to go? Prioritizing self because we do so much for and with other people
Mhm.
that
Mm.
we seldom do those things for us. I honestly thought that I had been taking care of self.
Mhm.
I thought I had. I thought I thought I was taking care of me, like almost the image of, what I'm saying, like a baby in a cradle. I really thought like I had control over over me, over my emotions, over my feelings. Like I'm good, I'm good. Until it all comes crashing down and you realize that you just suppressed so many things and just kept on moving and not really dealing with it.
Right. Yeah.
Um, One of the things that I really have had trouble with is after my mom passed, I didn't initially grieve because I could only feel relief. And I felt guilty about that,
Guilty about that part. Yeah.
but my body, my health, everything, my strength, everything had been so bad and so wound up together and just, you know, that I actually felt relief after. And I'm
Mhm.
asking myself, how can you feel relief that your mama gone? You know, it wasn't relief that she was gone. There was some relief that there was like no more suffering and that whole thing, but it was relief,
Mhm.
pain relief, you
Yes.
know, my like just to rest. Cause I would never sleep, like really sleep through the night, like because I'm listening. It was, being a full time caregiver. So
Right.
I think slept, you know, um, like for the first time. And so that was something I really had to deal with because I felt guilty at feeling relieved, but then I also had to remember that I asked God to give me strength and, you know, to keep her and not allow her to suffer.
Mhm.
And then I felt guilty about the strength that he gave me that I prayed for, because I'm like, no, I should be feeling like this or like that. I was devastated. I lost my mom. But that just goes to show the extent of the darkness that I was in,
Mhm.
from the combination of everything that all I really noticed was that I hadn't felt relief in years,
Yeah.
you know, almost like
Mhm.
I had been holding my breath the entire time,
Then you
you know,
didn't.
like, and I always say it felt like an out of body experience because I was fully present. I mean, when I say I was caregiver, I was a caregiver. I was, going to the doctor's appointments, whatever is needed, here in the home. Like I'm, working from home while my mom is basically declining in the room, So a lot of different, a lot of different emotions and stuff that I just they didn't even come up like to deal with because all I felt was relief.
Yeah.
And that was it. You know, like the grieving, I mean, I did grieve and everything, but just like immediately, like in the day, or 2 after, that's all I felt. And then, of course, after that, all I felt was guilt for, finally feeling like some relief. But just working through that and understanding that, of course, no, I'm not relieved that I lost my mom, but it felt like I could breathe,
Yes.
like the whole time I was just holding my breath, trying to do, what I'm saying, the best that I could do, the most that I could do. And so
Mhm.
after, if you're already in a bad headspace, then any other situation that comes is just gonna add to it. It's not gonna clear it up, and that's how we get the baggage. You know, I didn't really process that the guilt of feeling relieved, and then tried to go, what I'm saying, immediately into, okay, back to the grind of trying to figure my health out. you know?
Mhm.
When I say a never ending cycle, it was a never ending cycle until I finally got the strength to just jump off and say,
Yeah.
hey, I'm off this roller coaster. Like, I think I did this long enough, you
Right.
know?
Right.
Um, what am I gonna do? And it was like that very moment, I think, that I reached out to you
Mhm.
because I'm like, you know what? Just enough.
Yeah.
You have to get to that point.
Yes.
You
Yes.
have to get to that point. Like, I can talk to you and talk to you and talk to you all day, but until you are ready and willing to do the work, to ask yourself those hard questions, to dive into, a lot of that stuff that you've suppressed or haven't really dealt with like over the years, then it's not gonna work.
Mhm.
It's not gonna work.
Mhm.
Um, it's gonna be more like piling on of the same.
Right. Right. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us. Like you have shared so much, and I know it's going to help somebody. Because when we're in those spaces, we know we're lost. And when I was in there, I didn't have anybody saying any of this stuff. I couldn't find it nowhere. So I had
Right.
it's one of the reasons that we show up in this space and not only share coaching practices, but we would share moments like this so that you can see our stories, the why behind our why. And
Exactly.
so far, she's pointed out several ways to help you cope, and I encourage people to go back and listen to it again, as well as read the transcript if you can do that. But one of the first things that you need to do is make sure that you have some type of support group, support
Yes.
system. We immediately think about our immediate family and stuff, but
Right.
sometimes it has to be someone other than them. And
Right.
even Facebook communities and other areas, those virtual groups work. I know a lot of
They
people like,
really work.
I need to go somewhere. There's going to be a time and a situation where you're not physically going to be able to go, but to be able to tap into it like you tapped into this
Yes.
episode, that does help. And you can see other people in different areas. It was good for me to be able to see the people in the group that I was in for we were in a dementia group, and
Mhm.
I got there, was helping my mom, and I joined as well, and it helped me.
Yeah.
And when I could see the people that were in the midst of it and
Mhm.
struggling, the people that were new coming in, and then some of those that were at the end were like the loved one had passed on or was about
Right.
to pass.
Right.
But when you say certain things, when you're dealing with this, if you say that to just a lay person that has like no understanding, you're gonna come off like disgruntled, angry.
Yes.
Mean they're not gonna take for granted. They're gonna take for granted that you love this person and you
Right.
want nothing but the best for them. But it was if anything, a place to go and vent without even having to say anything.
Without having to say anything.
Somebody else has already said it. And then
Mhm.
answers and then tips and
Right.
real tips.
Yes.
So we encourage you to please do that. And then also you're gonna need to do your due diligence to make sure it's not one of those woe is me groups. That
Right.
everybody
Yes.
just crying and
Right.
and we
Mhm.
never send anybody any money. So
Never. Never. Not at
never.
all. Not at
um,
all. Don't do
uh,
that.
right. I'm just like, why do people do that? But we have to say it because I know people will play on your heartstrings.
Right,
But please, and then allow your people that are around you, though, your immediate family that want to be your support group, to be your support system.
right.
Allow them to do that. And those
But
of you
let
that are,
them know how they can support you,
yes,
how they
that
can
part.
be your support group, because it can be overbearing sometimes. And you have everybody that's trying to, you know what I'm saying, pour into you with what they feel like is best, or, what they feel like is, going to help you, get to a better space. And it's all with good intention.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to let them know, like, if it's something that you don't feel like is gonna work for you, you have to start being vocal about caring for yourself and your mental space.
Yes. And that
You have to
points
start.
directly to my next point that a lot of times we don't know how to do that. And
Right,
working with a coach can help you with that. It
exactly.
help you to identify that that's what the problem is. It's not because
Yes,
you're looking and you may be beating yourself up about, well, they want to help me, but I
right,
hate when they come around and
right.
a big
Yeah,
struggle. But because yeah, but
yeah,
they're getting on your nerves first off, and they're doing more harm than good. But we just need to do
exactly.
this.
Hmm.
Like they don't intentionally mean to harm you or cause you any kind of uncomfortableness, but we just need to do this. How about you try this?
Right.
And
Yes.
for a lot of people, if you're like me, I'm very nonchalant a lot of times and blunt. So
Hmm.
it is gonna take a little bit for me to get it together to say it without offending that person. So having
Right.
someone there with me to actually, like, hold my hand and guide me through the process, that really helped. It helps a lot.
Hmm.
And then when you try to go and do it and it don't work, they ask
Right.
like, look,
Yes.
I did this, and they still,
They still. Yeah.
I don't know. you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if this episode has resonated with you in any kind of way, I encourage you to follow her on the Blue app at Tapped In Coaching, as well as go to her. You can Google or go to her website. What is your website address again?
It's tapincoaching.com. And you could also email me, Tamika at tapincoaching.com. With Thanksgiving is next week.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's the start of the holiday season. This time comes every single year. It's not bad if you feel some type of way every single year. But
Mm-hmm.
knowing that this time of year brings about stress or emotions that sometimes you have a hard time dealing with, start trying to address those things now before the holidays. Try to make a plan
Mm-hmm.
of how you are going to protect your mental health and your mental space, and however the holidays cause you to feel. You have to have a plan for that. You can't,
Yeah.
you having a plan is not going to cause you to avoid any feelings, any sadness, or depression or anxiety, but it won't catch you off guard.
Yeah.
A lot of times we know these things are coming, we do nothing to prepare, and then it's as if it caught us off guard. But no, we still be mindful during the holidays. Be more mindful of your self-care. Be
Yeah.
more mindful of, you know, your thoughts and your feelings. And like she said, when it works for you, allow others to be there for you and support you. Because at the end of the day, we don't want to be alone. Sometimes it's just we want to, deal with our issues on our own, or we don't want to talk about it while we are around,
Mm-hmm.
but we really don't want to be alone.
Yes. Even the most introverted of the introverts, we don't
Right.
want to be alone. We are not those type of beings. We long for human companionship. It's
Right.
in us. So We just have to guide the people on the best way to be able to be there for us.
Mhm.
But thank you so much for
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
yes, we have, and I've learned a lot as well. That's some of my questions.
I try to say long story short, I'm telling you, this is such a long story. But
That's okay. Well, we're so thankful that you shared it with us. And once again, what's your website and how people can follow up with you?
tapincoaching.com. I am on Facebook at tapincoachingtr, and you can email me at tapincoaching.com.
All right. Well, we thank you so much, guys, for tuning in for another episode of Simply the Best Coaching Podcast. And remember, you are simply the best. Bye bye.